what's up, Brett? What are you doing?
For a while, DJs in hip hop kind of were forgotten about, and the MC had all the attention, you know? DJs were breaking records over the radio. DJs were the ones doing the scratches on the vinyl. DJs were actually producing a lot of these songs, but for some reason they weren't getting a lot of the credit.
You cannot do a party without a DJ. No way, no how. If a rapper comes to the party, he can't do anything because there's no DJ there. You know, there's no DJ there. And whoops.
The DJ is the focal point of hip hop, okay? And basically, we're the beat makers, we're the entertainers, okay? And the thing of it is, when you don't have the DJ, you lose your backbone. You know, it's just. I mean, hip hop is not going to stand complete. You have your b-boys, and you have your MCs, and you have your street entrepreneurs. You have everybody that talk hip hop, walk hip hop. But if you don't have the backbone of it, or if you don't know the 5 elements of hip hop, then you're not going anywhere.
People don't really understand the whole art of being a disc jockey. I mean, I don't even like to use the term disc jockey, man. I like to call myself an entertainer because I have to move a room for like 2 to 3 hours. You know what I'm saying? Playing all the songs they love and keeping the intensity up.
I've never thought about it as being a musician. I thought about it as being like a DJ. You come to my party, you hear my music, whatever problems that you have, whether it be your wife, your mother, your father, school, your girlfriend, whatever. I want you to come to my party and forget about whatever problems that you have at that particular time. Let me play some music for you and let me ease your mind about all the problems that you have. I probably won't make you forget about your problems, but I can like ease your mind of all the problems that you go through every day, you know?
As DJ who play clubs can actually change people's moods and stuff, where the way they play hip hop, you know, they would be bobbing their head saying, oh, that's the joint and everything, or he would change it and play reggae, and then these guys would be looking for meat, you know? I mean, yeah, be looking for girls, and then, you know, and then one time I was DJing with my boys, and he was playing reggae and stuff, and this dude just comes up to the stairs in the DJ booth, he's like, yo, I give you mad props, man. I met this girl, and yo, you playing reggae, yo, you the man. I mean, yo, the DJ could introduce you to a girl, if anything, you know, and stuff. I mean, you know, there's a lot of things that DJs can do.
You communicate through your music, you know, like you could get, plenty of times I was in the crowd and just listening to somebody, I was like, damn, you know, I know what he's thinking on this, you know?
I've seen people bob their heads, and I've seen people like get totally moved that they're jumping up and down and they just can't believe it, and they close their eyes, they're like, damn, you know, like that. And I've seen people just, you know, get so, you know, take this more than, it's like, I can't, there's no words to describe it anymore.
It's rhythm, rhythmatic sounds, man, and that's what I created. And I mean, when you apply that to a party and you have everybody dancing to it, it's incredible.
Some people will actually just dance and really just get into the music, and some people just watch. And
they'll still be really into it.
Yeah.
But at first, if you're not used to that, you're thinking, oh, they're not dancing. They must hate what we're playing. But really, they're just people like me. I'll get out on the floor and dance. He's not the type of person to go, you know, do spins on the floor. He'll just stand back and analyze the music and listen to it. And he's still just as equally into it as I am.
Yeah, it's a good sign. I think I think that it's really interesting, and it's really better a lot of times when people are actually just watching and listening, because you know they're really hearing what you're doing, and they're really like paying attention to everything that's going into everything that you're doing. Because a lot of times we play a lot of records and we're doing a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that people don't really catch. So the people that are really like paying attention are the ones that are really getting the full show and are really getting the most out of it. So it's.
But then without the dancers, you completely
you lose the energy.
When they boo you, that was the wrong record to put on. Nah, you gotta kind of like feel your crowd, man. It's like you have some DJs that just go out there and say, hey, whatever I play is gonna be the shit and they're gonna like it. You know, you can't have an attitude like that, man. I mean, people used to hearing what they're used to hearing, you know? So you have to be compassionate to what they like, but then add your own twist to it.
I know when I'm doing something that I like and that moves me, but then if other people like it, that moves me too, so you kind of engage both. But it feels best when it's something that you're like, yeah, I did the right thing, and then everybody else responds like, you did the right thing.
Sometimes when we mix at a club, we would have like 4 turntables, and it would just be, the energy's there, you know?
You gotta find everybody, because like if there was like 3 or 4 people, 5 people up on the turntables, and it kind of like everybody's up there, one's being a beat, snare, hi-hat, or whatever like that, and it might sound like noise like for the first couple of bars just because everybody's trying to find something, you know? But then you get to a point where everybody's now like, you know, like everybody's like in that zone.
There's times when I get into my DJing and I forget that I'm at a party, or I forget I'm on the radio, or I'm at a concert, because the music just takes you sometimes, and the rhythms just, it takes you. And sometimes, you know, if you're a DJ, you can relate to this. If you're a DJ, sometimes when you feel what you're doing, nothing else can mess you up. Nothing can get in your way. If you're really feeling what you're doing, you're like, man, I'm rocking.
You know, like if you're practicing by yourself or something like that, and you've hit upon something that you might not have been doing before or something like that, so you'll just kind of get in the zone. You'll keep trying to repeat the pattern over and over and over again to kind of get something. You get in a rhythm, and you feel if they answer the phone, or you know, if your mom calls you or something, it's like, not right now. You know, I'm in this zone thing. You know, I don't think you call it a zone, but yeah, it's.
I do.
Would you call it a zone?
Yeah, I call it a zone. That happens.
How do you know when you're there?
You just know, you just feel it.
Yeah,
you just
you feel
everything
it.
you do, just when you're
flows.
just flowing.
It just flows.
You're just flowing. You don't have to think about it.
I think it's spiritual. The connection, it's just like you don't have to talk. We don't talk to each other. We rarely say, you know, like on stage. I mean, I can look, you know, make eye contact and know what he's thinking, and I can't really put it into words, but
Telepathy.
Yeah.
When I come up with routines, I think that I seriously believe that it's not just me. Like, it's definitely a higher being making me move my hands a certain way, and cause sometimes, you know, I'll be cutting. I don't know. I'm one to give credit to God a lot, because I feel that I really don't feel that. I think it's just pompous for me to believe that it's just me doing this.
I feel that way on stage when, you know, people are watching, and you just, yeah, you're right. You are in a zone. You're like in your own world. I mean, nothing exists around you but what you're doing, and it's just, I guess, another way of leaving our body and tapping into something extra, you know.
Yeah, Bismarcky has a house that's dedicated to vinyl. You know, I have one room, so. But then I have records that he wants, and he has records that I want. So everybody has their own stuff. It doesn't matter how much records you have. In like 6th, 7th grade, everybody was either a rocker or a souler, you know. And then people had that saying, AC/DC, rock and roll, disco sucks, and so does soul. So, but I liked AC/DC and I liked soul, so I was confused. Yeah, I love jazz. I love rock. I mean, my album, mostly, a lot of it was psychedelic rock, because that's like some of the only music that's been untapped from the 60s, like Iron Butterfly. The electric pens are always good. This is nice. That's the beauty of hip-hop. You take the best of the best, and then you save the worst for other people to listen to or whatever. Orange Crush, that's a good 12-inch action. A lot of the good stuff where people got stuff where they got samples from was disco.
At first it was just sampling and filtering the sample to give me my own bass line underneath. Lost Professor taught me that. He was like, you know, this is how you filter a sample. I used to be like, how you get the bass to come up underneath but it's still playing the same sample? And he taught me that way back in like '89. And then King of Chill from Alliance taught me how to actually work a sampler. And I didn't even have a drum machine or anything to tap it out. And I used to just go home and just make things loop, and I thought I was the shit.
I'm a fan of sampling. You know, I'm, you know, on both sides, being
an artist and a producer. You know, hip hop was based on sampling. You know, we cut records and, you know, MCs rhyme, you know, and that's what it was about. You know, so I'm somebody that I kind of think I get a little disheartened now that hip hop doesn't have the samples that it used to have.
Samples have basically suffocated hip hop in a lot of ways. There's two ways to clear a sample. You have to clear it from a publishing side, and you have to clear it from a master side. And then you got to pay the person to clear the samples. So you got 3 fees you're looking at. And you know, when you're making music in the house, you don't want to think about, oh, I can't use
the limits.
When it was early and young and exciting, no one thought about paying. And then I forget who it was that got hit with the first big legal suit on that. And all of a sudden, you know, things realigned, and then it's okay again as long as you're going to pay.
There's a lot of real hypocritical labels from the past that put out a lot of early rap classics that didn't have cleared samples, and then they go around trying to sue everybody that scratches a hiccup that you scratch off of some rapper or something. That to me is just total hypocrisy.
I had one journalist say to me at one point, he said, well, you know, I think your stuff should be absolutely legal. The concept of intellectual property in this case just absolutely doesn't hold and all that. And I said, well, that's pretty interesting. I said, because my next project is a book, and it's going to be made up completely of other people's writings, and we're going to be taking a lot of your stuff. What do you think? And he, you know, he was like,
They should be compensated. You know, if you're going to make $1, then they should make $1 also. You know, and that's where I think the discrepancy comes in, when people just take it and don't. You know, I mean, which you know, that's hip hop. We ain't supposed to be writing on walls, but that's graffiti.
The whole art form is based on other music that hasn't been cleared. Consequently, that's the one thing that's held back the major labels from signing people, because if you talk to a major label, they go, well, we can't put that out because, look, it's got like 26 samples in there that if we were to clear them all, we'd make a huge loss. And the good thing of that is that it sort of kept it more pure and more of an art form.
There's always been a rebellious stance in hip-hop, and I adopted that in my chosen medium, which was sampling. But within that, I mean, I also don't try to just take 20-bar loops, 24-bar loops of, you know, a #1 hit from 15 years ago.
We're not just looping Rick James, you know? We're digging hard and deep, you know, for not the hit. We're digging for rare records, stuff that never made it and will never surface again without the re-exposure of us recycling these records.
A lot of these people that we sample, we're giving them life again because we're feeding them by clearing them, giving them money. They get sales off every rollover, off every 200-something thousand copies that get sold. And stuff like that, it's refeeding them.
Do you visualize the musicians recording the track you're playing as you're playing it? Yeah, I mean, you know, you wonder like what made them come up with what they came up with. What were they smoking that day?
We have so much respect for the original cast who do soul music, rock music, calypso, whatever it is, Latin, soul, funk, rock, whatever it is, jazz. There's so much respect from the average hip-hop DJ / producer / musician.
I'm not human, and I'm a curator and experiential engineer. This is the nerve center for sound traffic control, which is sort of the orchestral hub of Recombinant. And Recombinant are these events that we've been throwing for a number of years now that include many of the DJ crews, you know, the Scratch Pickles, Executioners, Beat Junkies, all of them. It includes people operating computer workstations as inputs. A lot of times I've conducted live orchestras with electronic batons, you know, amplified violins, cellos, violas, guitars in sort of huge ensembles, and fed them into what you're kind of seeing in back of me here, the dub dashboard, which is like a sonic airport where different musical cargos can land, taxi, and take off. Just like the turntablists would do with taking vinyl, you know, and sort of reinterpreting history at their fingertips in a live manner. This is really an organic, real-time system where we can morph incoming sounds, change their nature, and then turn them into sound objects, like sonic trajectory missiles. It's like audio artillery that slings across the room. What this is all about, and what we're doing a version of here, is the art of mixing, like with the flares and crabs and juggles and beat scratches and all these kinds of things that everyone's doing. What they're doing is they're creating a language out of mixing.
What's so crazy about it is that our ITF headquarters and main office is 1 minute away from the guy who actually made the turntable. Douglas actually named the turntable after his wife, Victoria. And it's pretty, it makes sense. It's like, we've got the office over here. The turntable was built and made and founded right in Coma, California.
Here is the one of the original boombox / turntables. Back then there was a DJ called DJ Old School, and one day he went like,
There's some people that just, are like, oh, vinyl sounds better than CDs. I don't know about that, but, for what I do, it's the only thing you can use.
But you can get all intricate with it. You can look at the grooves. You can check out if it's crappy or if it's good, if there's nicks or scrapes in it. And, with a CD, it's just so like, crack open the CD, silver disc, put it in, robot, This is... this could warp, it could break, it could, you want to treat it like it's...
Hold it and cradle it, Like if you take, I don't know, it only takes like 20 or 30 to kind of get that whole thing going.
I've been told, well, you'll be able to scratch CDs. They'll have these like little wheels that are representations of the CDs. It's like, well, yeah, but that's like, it's like making love at long distance, It's kind of like you want to put your hand on it.
You can't just get freaky with it, you know what I'm saying? CDs is technologically advanced, but you can't just like backspin, you can't stop and go, you can't do all of this with a CD. Well, not yet.
Myself and Tony use 3 turntables and 2 mixers, so you can get one mixer to kind of feedback on itself and manipulate that feedback with a gain control and then cut that sound in and out with the other mixer. So you get this kind of really mad sort of guitar come synthesizer sort of noise from this feedback, and it changes pitch.
yeah, we're kind of perverted about scratching, and it's an obsession for us, and you know, and there's a fine line between an obsession and a perversion, and we just like to.
The definition of perverted is to manipulate something to your own ends.
Well,
So
to
in many
rape
ways,
children.
it's applicable to what we do. We can
That's a very
pervert
serious
sounds. You know?
Yeah, I remember
Well,
he'd done that once
scratching is-
before, and he'd done it once before in an interview. He's like, honestly, what pervert means is, and I'm sitting there like, bloody hell, you're clever. And I guess if you call yourself something, you should really look up what it means in the dictionary, shouldn't you? Kind of give you a leg to stand on.
Can you kind of describe what South Bronx was like in the mid-'70s or early '70s? Like what kind of a scene you inherited?
Well, we had a lot of gang violence happening at the time. Also a lot of social awareness that was also happening at the time. You know, we just coming out of the 60s into the 70s when you had your civil rights movement, your human rights movement, the Love Power movement, the Vietnam War. You had your Malcolm X, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Minister Louis Farrakhan, Nation of Islam. You had your Beatles, your Sly and the Family Stone, your James Brown, the Motown sound, the Stack Sound era. You had your rock and roll, your heavy metal, all that was coming out of the 60s right into the 70s, and people was ready for change. And then later on came the big change, and then also came the music of the disco and the hip hop culture and the punk rock.
And when you founded Zulu Nation, that was like, was that an attempt to climb out of something? I mean, what was the inspiration for that?
Well, the Universal Zulu Nation was to get everybody away from the negative and bringing them into the positive. You know, coming from gang organizations and trying to take a lot of gang affiliations and turn it to something positive. So that's why we started the Universal Zulu Nation. The Universal Zulu Nation stands for knowledge, wisdom, understanding, freedom, justice, and equality. Peace, unity, love, and having fun. Overcome the negative to the positive. Science, mathematics, truth, facts, and the oneness of God.
What about you personally? Was there anything personal that was like motivated you personally? Like, I don't know, you know, were you in high school or like what at the time was just like, man, I've got to do something different than what's going on?
Well, basically, hearing a lot of the teachers of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and also some of my old gang members who became DJs, like Cool DJ D, and my other brother Disco King Mario. And I said, you know, that's the route. I always had a lot of music. They always knew me for a lot of different music that I had in my house. I was playing on 8 DJ sets. So I decided that this is the way to go. And then when the father came, Cool DJ Herc, I said, well, he's coming with the style of music that I have in my house. So, and then I came right out after him. And then it became the culture of hip hop, and Grandmaster Flash and all the other pioneers who came after us, you know, pushing this culture all over the city.
Was there a moment when you saw Cool Herc doing what he was doing and just went, wow, that's different, that's cool?
Well, when I see the beats that he was playing, I said, well, I got a lot of those beats and then some. And I was already playing a lot of funky stuff on Cool DJ D's set, and also on Disco King Mario. So I said, well, I'm just gonna start incorporating all my break beats and all my funk as I've been doing, along with a lot of other sounds. And then we just started bringing all the different dance sound, the different records. And then we started organizing a lot of the different people in the street. You know, we had different dance groups, B-boys, B-girls, as well as rappers and graffiti artists all together to make the whole culture.
Did it feel when you were doing this like this is gonna work? Did it feel, or were there times when like that? I don't, you know, like people didn't get it?
No, because we already had a large community with us. You know, once we left the gang movement, you know, I had a large following already from the street gangs. So they just followed me to wherever I was going and where I was taking it. So when we started, it was basically for the Black and Latino community. But as we started going down into the late 70s, early 80s, that's when I knew once we started making recordings and we took it downtown to the Mud Club, the Negrils, the Roxy's, that a lot of people was gonna get involved from other different cultures and races. That's when a lot of the punk rockers started coming up, hanging with us in the South Bronx and partying among Black and Latinos, where everybody thought it was gonna be some type of racial violence and this and that. But as Uncle George Clinton said, one nation under groove. and that's all the people was worrying about.
Well, that's something a lot of people don't know about those days. I mean, you guys, you're into positivity and diversity. Was that always kind of a foundation of the idea of hip hop?
Well, the hip hop culture, you know, it started in the Black and Latino community, but it was always, the music was always colorless. You know, the beats came from all different styles of music, whether it's based on funk, R&B, or soul, and based on heavy metal beats and rock beats. And it's what you put on it that makes it a black or white or brown, yellow, red, or human being thing. You know, it's what the lyrics that you say on it, but the music itself in general is colorless.
How do you feel today knowing, I mean, without a doubt, even this film is a part of it. There is a resurgence and a new appreciation for hip hop, and I think more in its original, what it was kind of meant to be. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm glad. Well, I always see that as two split type things going on now. You have people who follow hip hop culture, then you got the people who follow just the rappers. So, you know, you have people that's into seeing the DJs, the rappers, the B-boys, the B-girls, the graffiti artists, the style of dressing. Then you got other people who just follow rap groups to see whatever's the last hit that a rap group had. And, you know, and so now you have two split cultures happening at the same time.
Do you believe sometimes when you're playing, you're playing for beyond human beings, that there is like other civilizations or other realities understanding your music?
I strongly believe that we're being monitored. I even had certain things like I played at the Love Parade, which is almost over 2 million people, about 3 or 4 times what Woodstock was. And one time I was chatting on the mic, where's my human beings at? And you heard a loud roar. Then I asked, where my alien beings at? And you even heard a bigger roar, and I was bugging out to hear so many people screaming. So one never knows.
Was Kool Herc truly the first guy to actually extend a break?
Well, Kool Herc is one of the first founders of the hip-hop culture. He's the father of hip-hop culture. But you got to give it to James Brown as extending the break. You know, James Brown, when he was making a lot of his records, Sex Machine and all that, 16 minutes of funk and break beats. If you listen to all of James Brown is hip-hop. Sly and the Family Stone is hip-hop. Sly gave you Sex Machine and Single Simple Song, all the breaks that they had in their records. So, you know, to get into the breakbeat music, you got to stop with the funk.
Identify that because you could be that man.
Well, it's important now because a lot of people has came and tried to take our culture away or try to say it started here or did this and that, and they're not giving recognition. Just like many times I had to keep James Brown name out there, Sly and the Family Stone, Uncle George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, which I felt that by keeping their names out, got them inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because, you know, a lot of people get away from the pioneers that helped did something, then other people blow up off of it, then they don't get back to their community, where they think a lot of us are old school. In Zulu Nation, we got rid of that old school stuff. It's that same true school. If you're true to this, then you're part of the true school.
So there's got to be times you just like wake up in the morning and just go, man, I like help.
Oh yeah, I give respect, but I'm humble. As long as the Creator's backing this, and I keep giving blessings to the Creator, I don't care what name we call the Creator, Allah, Jehovah, Yahweh, Elohim, Jah, just give the respect to that and know that the blessing of hip-hop is now international, and I love it. And the Zulu Nation played a big role bringing it over to many countries throughout the world.
Cool. Do you have anything else to say? I'm very happy.
Well, the only thing I got to say is, although we love, you may love your hip-hop culture, your techno, your rock, your jazz, African, or soca reggae, or whatever you love, respect Mother Earth. Because if you don't respect Mother Earth, she will spit your ass out.
I think that a couple of things that happened when I started buying old records, of course, initially I was just looking for the things other people had used. And there were some magazines in England that started writing about breakbeats and sampling and what it was all about. And I was just picking them up here in town in California, and so I'd use that as a resource and just go to my local record store. And back then, of course, nobody was looking, you know, out here was looking for that kind of stuff, so just be like, you take it for granted, you know what I mean? I'd come up here, oh, Cerrone, you know, Rocket in the Pocket, oh, okay. Oh, Incredible Bongo Band, cool, you know. And, but But a couple things, I picked up James Brown Payback just on a whim, because I knew James, you know, a lot. I see James Brown's name a lot on these sample things. And it was before anybody had really used the big Payback, the song, you know. And when people started using it, I was like, man, I could have done that. I could have done that first, you know. And then, but the big one as well for me was my dad had Isaac Hayes' Hot Buttered Soul. And I was listening to the cut with called Hyperbolic Sesquidade, whatever. It's a long title. I put it on a tape and was, you know, on the same tape as like whatever else was out that week. I can't remember, like maybe some 2 Live Crew record and a BDP record or something. And was just play it in rotation with my normal diet of hip hop. And then Public Enemy used it on Black Steel and the Hour of Chaos. And I was like, see, I can do this, you know what I mean? My dad had that record. I felt like I was in sync with the whole sample movement at that moment, you know? Because my dad, like, had a lot of records. I mean, they were actually, my mom and my dad were at a Tower of Power concert in Oakland about 7 hours before I was born. So I always like to think that somehow that got in my system, you know what I mean? All of the things that have guided me through life come from hip-hop, you know what I mean? And I can break it down like this. I remember hearing Ice-T saying that he would never work a 9-to-5 job. And I thought, yeah, I agree with that. I remember Kool Moe Dee saying he got a degree in communications. And that's what I did, you know what I mean? I thought to myself, you know, it was like 86, 87. I didn't know what I wanted to do in college. I had another 3 years of high school, whatever. I heard him say that, and I was like, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll do that. You know what I mean? So that's what I set out to do. I mean, I can just keep breaking it down like that. It's the music. I don't know. Music has just always been there. I mean, you know, my parents made me play piano when I was young. You know. So I've always enjoyed music. I always wanted to play the drums, never was able to. You know, we never lived in the kind of place where I could have a drum kit. And, you know, school, I would do what I had to do to get by, but at night I would go home and just put on the headphones and just sit there and make my own little pause mixes and make my own, you know, scratch on Charlie Brown records and things like that, because it just felt that it was just for me, you know what I mean? It's being a DJ has always been what I've identified myself as. When you're a kid, you imitate your heroes. If your heroes are Jimi Hendrix and Jimmy Page, then you play guitar, you know, until you imitate their riffs first of all, and then you sort of put your own spin on it and then keep going, develop your own thing. For me, I was imitating all my DJ heroes, you know, Jam Master Jay. I mean, even up to people like DJ Too Tough from the Tough Crew, who I thought was incredible. Me and Z-Trip were just talking about him 2 days ago. And I was just trying to cut like they did and just scratch like they did. And I would do it until I could imitate it, and then I'd try and do it faster. And so those were my heroes. And then when I got into sampling and I felt like I could make tracks, and because like in 90, in 89, when I started making my own music, you couldn't really turntablism as an art form hadn't really developed yet. And even people like Cash Money, who were adept DJs, still had to rely on beats and samples to propel their songs along. So I quickly learned that that's what I had to do. And then I had to, I was imitating my heroes from the whole sample glory days. People like, again, Premier, Large Professor, Pete Rock, and a lot of lesser-known beat makers and stuff. And when it came time for me to, once I imitated them and I put my own spin on it, for some reason my spin tended to be towards eliciting some sort of emotion.
My mother was a big vinyl collector, being that when I was a kid, vinyl was the only source of getting records besides cassette tapes. 8-tracks wasn't even out yet, so the thing that fascinated me mainly was just the way the labels looked and how they looked when they spun around. As a kid, certain things could attract a child that wouldn't attract an adult. I was fascinated how the needle knew when the record dropped to move over to the record. I used to try to even take it apart and figure how could a needle know when it's a 33 to start there, and if it was a 45, I'd move farther inside the platter and drop down on the record. You know, I used to go over people's house just to see what kind of record player they even had. Being that music was always in my house, as far as my mother being a big music lover, for some reason, even when I was in church, she said I used to climb up and steal the records that they had, like little church records on the wall. And after church, I would sneak in there and climb up there and try to take them down just because I wanted to have the records. I used to even come to church with a 45 in my hand. I mean, at that time, who would have thought I was going to be a DJ, producer / artist and all that stuff? But that happened, you know, from childhood. I even have pictures of me that Stu Fine, I want my pictures back, from Wild Pitch. He has a picture of me surrounded by 45s when I was like at least maybe 6 or 7 years old. Late 79, 80, you know, I was always going to New York to see my grandfather who lived in Brooklyn. And every time I went, I asked him what were the top black stations to listen to, because I was always into black radio. I was also into rock too, because my older sister was into rock at the time. She was into like the Eagles and Bay City Rollers and Van Halen, you know, all that type of stuff. So when she was coming up into that, I also had a liking for that type of music. But at the same time, going to see my grandfather on the holidays and listening to the stations and hearing Marley Marl, you know, even then Marley Marl wasn't even on the radio yet, you know, or Magic. But just when he used to take me around the city or take me, you know, just shopping or whatever, he was already hearing the music because people had mixtapes from the, you know, from T-Connection and Rooftop. And, you know, there was all live tapes that people taped after being at a gig. It's just like, to this day, if I do a party, I pop a tape in and I record it because I want to play back and see how I did, how I responded, how I made the crowd rock. So when I was seeing kids walking around with the big radios already blasting that type of music, I was like, where are they getting this from as a kid? I mean, I probably was almost like 11 or 12 and before I got to junior high. So to hear it then, it just put me into the perspective that, you know, that this is something new, but it automatically grabbed me because the sound of it and the attitude of people rocking over a mic and not singing let me know that that was something new that was going to be emerging. I've always liked stuff that was hard and emotional. I like stuff that has, you know, that impact that makes you feel like you're moving a big truck or a truck is just slammed into a wall. I mean, it's a release for me. I mean, some people can't take that type of an impact. Some people can. I've always been moved by something like that. It was relative to, you know, just how I feel every day. I get stressed out like anybody else. And I go through my little moods where, you know, certain things relax me, and usually hardcore stuff relaxes me. If you're a connoisseur of the culture and you're into it like that, from the graffiti side, the b-boy side, even all the dancing and everything, you gotta also understand it's the same thing like with the dancing part. Three guys can walk in here and I can say, yo, he got fat moves, he's corny, and this dude is all right. But you're gonna be able to tell if you're in the culture. If you're not in the culture, it's not gonna make sense to you. It's like sometimes I even explain to my parents that they'll be like, they saw my show Rage Against the Machine, they were like, well, why are you saying we're showing the police love by giving them the middle finger and you have a brother-in-law who's a cop? It's like, understand that, for one, we're speaking for the youth that go through a lot of, you know, being misunderstood by parents and police, so we're speaking for them. Some of those people don't have a voice to let themselves be heard, but hip-hop has always done that. It's always let the generation that's in trouble show their views of what society is like to them. And if you don't bring those things out, the world's gonna be in a lot worse chaos than it already is. It's already chaotic as it is anyway, but if we didn't have hip hop, Guru always says the world would be in a lot more chaos.
So who am I with?
Man, you're with the world's greatest DJ, so they say. You know what I mean? DJ Cash Money. All right?
Where are you from?
From Philadelphia.
You got Philadelphia had pretty big contribution to the history of hip-hop, right?
Well, we have a Schoolie D, the originator of gangster rap. He influenced Dr. Dre and all that gangster stuff. And you have the Jazzy Jeff, Fresh Prince, you know, their contributions. Cash Money, Marvelous, Steady B, Cool C, 3 Times Dope, Tough Crew, Bahamadia, The Roots. Boys the Men, Patti LaBelle, it goes Dr. J, it all goes back and back and back, man.
What was the difference between what was happening in Philadelphia and what came out of the South Bronx? Like, how did you guys flip it? Was there something in terms of DJing, like what happened in Philly?
Well, the focus was more on the MC, I think, and from New York. We kind of flipped it to make the DJ more of the focus.
What was the first thing you ever heard from the original? Like, what was the first hip hop you ever heard that moved you? You said, "Wow, that's different. I want to do that," or anything like that.
I think when I heard Grandmaster Flash, I used to collect a lot of underground New York tapes, and I think when I heard him, I cut up like, this was a song by Vaughn Mason, Get Down. I think it's called Bounce, Rock, Roll, Skate. And he cut a part on there called Get Down. Man, that was the best thing I ever seen, ever heard, man. And I think that's what really catapulted me into getting in this whole hip-hop thing.
What was it about it? Like, kind of more specifically, like, what was it about the sound that you just said it's different?
I don't know, man. It was just like the way he was catching the record. I'm a music lover from the beginning. I just love music, but the way he was just cutting that record up, man. And then he was switching different records, like catching like different break beats and stuff. That was the best thing since Bubblegum to me, man.
So what'd you do?
Well, I copied his. I got 2 of the same records and tried to copy as much as I could. And from there, I just created my own style, man. After I learned his style, I took it to another level. And I was hooked from that day on. Yeah. I come from a small town, like the suburbs of Philadelphia. And what happened was, getting into the city, see, Jazzy Jeff was the man in the city. Me and him linked up. He got me a few parties and stuff like that. Then my reputation started growing. I went from doing tapes to doing house parties to doing college parties and school dances. Then I started doing parties up in like different states. Then from there, I entered this thing called the New Music Seminar, which was in New York. And that kind of like catapulted my whole career. It kind of worked out beautifully because I had an album. I was signed to Sleeping Bag Records. So you got the new release. He's the new champion, So it kind of,
like people in England or
yeah,
that's what he was kind of telling
yeah, and it kind of really catapulted my my career real fast.
Was that a shock?
No, because I always knew I was the greatest DJ. I was the greatest DJ out there at that particular time,
Right.
And it was just pretty much proving it by winning all these different contests.
Yeah. One last question then is, how do you think battles have changed, like just kind of over the years? Like, are battles as meaningful as they used to be? No, what?
I think they are, but the battles are meaningful, but it's the type of DJs that are in there now. It's like, I can't sit through a DMC battle, and I'm not discrediting DMC, but it's the actual performers, the DJs themselves. How can you, they sound like the same, like if one DJ goes on, the next DJ sounds like the next DJ. Yeah. And it's like, I noticed by me hanging around all these guys, like before the battles, they go and hang with one another in their rooms cutting. I'm like, yo, you're showing this guy, you're about to, the whole purpose of you being here is to win the award, win the glory, right? How can you win the glory when you're showing the guy you're supposed to go up against your routine you're going to do up against him? I don't understand it.
Right. And I guess one last question. What do you think about this? Not ScratchCon specifically, but there's just a lot of talk about how the DJ, maybe since the mid-90s, like there is kind of a new DJ movement. Let's face it, it just is. A lot of people buying turntables and
right.
ScratchCon and everything. What do you think about that?
That's beautiful.
What is beautiful?
It's beautiful that there's more DJs in the world. We need that. But now what we need is to get more of these companies to get involved with the DJs. Turntables are very expensive. For an average kid who's not even working, he's gonna have to save up a lot of money and do his whatever hustle he's doing to get the money to buy these turntables. I know the companies don't ask the DJs to buy their equipment or whatever, but come on, you have to give something back. You know, you have to. You know,
Where'd you get your name from?
DJ Cash Money came from, I play basketball, and I'll say it, I'm real good at playing ball, all right? Every time I used to shoot, everybody used to say, oh, that's money. So, but at that particular era, everybody was a grandmaster or a cut master, something.
Right.
So I didn't want to be called the same name as everybody else. So I just applied Cash Money, added DJ, boom, here I am.
Cool.
You know what I mean?
Anything else? One thing, yeah. You said you're real good at basketball, and there's a level of confidence you have and a level of like humility you have. How do you balance the two, and is that important for people?
Confidence is very important because you have to know when you're performing, if you show any sign of weakness with your crowd's gonna know it. If you don't show it, like whenever I perform, I mean, I'm really a humble guy, but when the camera's on, I'm confident, man, because it's showtime.
We're rolling? Okay. So, you can ignore the camera.
Okay.
And we'll just have a conversation.
Oh, cool.
Okay, sorry about that. So, like, all around, well-rounded DJ, what qualities?
You know, I think someone who can mix as well as scratch, you know, that knows what to do with two records, not just, you know, put one record on, can scratch over top of it. You know, it's just rounding all of the skills of being a DJ, you know, being able to adapt to anything that happens.
Do you worry sometimes, like especially nowadays with the scratching phenomenon? I mean, it's everywhere. Everybody's scratching. Like, do you feel like it's getting too technical?
No, never,
No
never.
way.
I mean, I think there was a time that I remember thinking that there could be nothing else done with turntables, and to look at what guys like Qbert, Rock Raider, Craze, you know, have turned it into. You know, you can only imagine what it's going to be like in the future. So I don't want to put any limits on it being too technical. You know, that just broadens the field.
Right. Now you produced a lot. I mean, there was a time when like a lot of DJs just became producers. So how did that kind of come about for you?
Well, I mean, I think a DJ is a producer. I mean, you know, when you DJ in a party, you're producing the party. It's your job to make people dance. It's your job, you know, to keep it going, to kind of keep it so that there's no fights or anything. So pretty much you're a producer and you just don't really know the technical term of it, you know. And then, you know, what happens is when you get into crews or you have an MC, you're basically producing his track for him. You're keeping the beat steady, making sure, knowing when to come in and out, you know. And I think it's just a natural progression for DJs, you know, to want to get a drum machine and make beats and put cuts over top of it. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of it comes down to the MC. I mean, I like to do all kinds of beats, and I think what I got really known for was, you know, the beats that I did for Will and the cuts that we did. But I mean, a lot of it, you know, especially the early stuff, was really, you know, just what hip hop was about, bragging about the DJ's the best, and, you know, what he can do, and, you know, and that's what we used to do at a lot of the house parties in Philly on, you know, on tapes, you know, so we just kind of turned that into records.
Were mixtapes a big part of that?
Absolutely, it was huge. I mean,
I
that
need
was
somebody to tell
that
me
was
the
that was the,
mixtape.
that was the only form that we had to get, you know, all of this stuff around. You know, we would make a mixtape, and see, back then it's different because we would make one or make two copies and just give them to somebody. And what happens is they're dubbed and dubbed and dubbed. It wasn't you giving everybody fresh tapes, you know. So you would get a tape that would be probably 100th generation, and it would just sound like this, and you couldn't understand it. But you picked out all of the MC's rhymes, and you picked out all the DJ's cuts.
Right. Help me with a little bit of history, like from the old school, because there's this whole theme in this movie now that like after the old school, the DJ kind of faded out, like the old school DJ, because MC sort of took over. So you're a very good person to ask, like kind of like about that, or if you agree with that, or if you sort of saw that happening.
I think it faded out, and thank God what happened was the turntablists took over and turned it into the art form what we have now. I mean, you know, before it was cool, you know, and I can even admit it, for a minute, you know, DJing is my love, but for a minute I got caught up in, wow, do people want to hear this? Or people, you know, when it kind of changed. And I think what happened is you started not getting the cuts on the records. I didn't realize that a lot of people really liked what me and Will did because we kept putting cuts in the records, and it was so reminiscent of the old. But, you know, and when the hip hop changed and the DJ kind of, you know, it's like the DJ element was pulled out of hip hop, you know, and then the turntablists evolved, which just blew it up into a whole nother culture.
But that was a while after.
Well, no, it wasn't. It was a while after when the world found out about it. But, you know, the turntablists, you know, were creating and getting the battles and getting the routines. I mean, I think that's why, you know, the whole DJ culture just blew up, you know, because they put so much focus in making sure that this was an art form that people were going to understand, you know, which, you know, I'm very happy for.
Are you pretty into the kind of concept of hip hop, the 4 elements or whatever, you know, the elements are important?
Absolutely.
Can you state that?
I mean, that's what it's about. It was about breakdancing, it was about graffiti, it was about rhyming, it was about DJing, you know. That's what it is, you know, and it's like you talk to anybody back in the day, most DJs can write graffiti, you know, most MCs can write graffiti, you know. It's just a, you know, then you get graffiti writers that you know, and it's like they all can DJ, so it's like, you know, it's
Well, just the name alone. There's this one interview, somebody saying, yeah, it always used to be like Jazzy Jeff in the Fresh Prince. And like, you know, it was always
oh
the
yeah,
DJ
you know,
first,
the DJ and then the rapper, you know. You know, that's what it was. Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Grand Wizard Theodore and the Romantic Fantastic Five, you know.
So how did it actually switch around?
I don't know. I think, you know, I think you know, it wasn't, I don't think people incorporate DJs into the groups anymore. I think it was just, okay, I'm an MC and I need a DJ, but you're just gonna back me up. You know, they started setting the tone from the door, like, you know, no, you're gonna back me up. You know, we're not gonna get a group.
How can you deny the power of like personality and, you know, like you got that guy up there with a mic in his hands.
Well, I mean, you can, but it's kind of like you're the control person. You know what I mean? You know, how many times you've been to a show and a guy up there with the mic in his hand and something happened to the DJ and everything messed, you know, it throws everything off. You are the, you know, the whole night revolves around the DJ.
Yeah. Do you see, I assume you are into jazz. Do you see any similarities between what happened to jazz and what's going on with DJs?
Totally, it's the same thing. I mean, it's you know, I think it's the modern day jazz. You know, wasn't respected. You know, was criticized. People didn't understand it. You know, and then you just got a group of people that we kind of got these cafes and these small gatherings that we would get together and show off our skills. You know. And I think it's the exact same thing as jazz, you know. And it took a minute for jazz to be recognized, and just like, you know, people are really starting to open their eyes to the whole DJ culture.
Yeah. So you kind of sort of looking up in a way right now, right about now.
Absolutely.
Talk to me just for a second. I mean, without going into some huge history, but like I know that in Philly, like Cash Money, you were his mentor. Is that right? No.
I don't know if it was really like that. I mean, it's, you know, it was kind of like
you helped
Cash. I mean, yeah, we all helped each other out. You know, Philadelphia was a big DJ town because that's when all of the rappers came from New York, and we had rappers in Philadelphia, but it was kind of, you know, the rappers backed the DJs up. You know, they talked about us. You know. And that's what it was about. You know, the block parties, the house parties, you know, parties at the Wynn Ballroom Hotel Philadelphia. You know, those were the things that kind of made, you know, me, Cash, Cosmic Kev, Grandmaster Nell, you know, all of the DJs that, you know, come out of Philly, you know, that was it.
Right. What about New Music Seminar? Was there a battle that you kind of broke, that broke you? Like,
yeah,
you noted, like,
86.
Can you sort of say that?
I mean, it was a New Music Seminar Battle for World Supremacy in 1986. Actually, Lady B, you know, a hip hop icon in Philly, you know, she got me put in the battle, you know, because she knew what Philly DJs were about, what I could do. Got up, and, you know, nobody really thought that I had a chance, because nobody really knew. I mean, there's a couple DJs that kind of knew from coming to Philly, you know, it just walked through everybody, it just won.
Right.
You know, and it was cool, because it was like I won that year, Cash won the next year, Miz won the year after that, so it was kind of Philly.
If it's true that, you know, not to keep harping on this, but if the MC just kind of took over for a while, was battles a way for DJs to still shine? Like, did that solve a problem for a DJ?
Well, I mean, you got to keep in mind, battles were in hip hop. Battles was in breakdancing. They had graffiti battles. Battles were in, you know, MCing as well as DJing. So I think it's just, you know, that was the whole thing of like, you know, I can, you know, I have fresh enough material that if I'm called out on the spot, I can come up with something, you know, and whatever are the 4 elements of hip hop you were in. You know, I think, you know, battling was just a part of it.
Right.
You know, you at a party, somebody says something that they can do this, you let them go on, let them see what they could do, then you go on, see what you could do, you know.
How did you feel when you won that first time?
I was extremely happy, you know, because to know that, you know, you looked at yourself that you were good, you know, and then to get an opportunity to show it and win, you know, it's kind of really made me feel good.
Right. One last question. I always ask everybody, first time you ever got a turntable, what was the first thing you were just like, I gotta do this?
Well, you know what? When I got a turntable, it was before people were mixing, so I don't remember. You know, I think it was
Was
just.
there a moment you said, I'm gonna be a hip hop DJ?
You know, because I was around when hip hop started, so it was, from the door, it was like I am a hip hop DJ. It wasn't like I was gonna be. It was like, no, I'm one of those. I'm a hip hop DJ.
All right, good. Thanks so much for your time.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.